What a morning. So today I am taking out my budget lens, 75-300mm M.Zuiko lens. I'm going to put it on my EM1 Mark II. I'm going to see if we can get some good images with gear that you can get secondhand relatively cheaply. This is one of my favorite places to come in springtime. The yellow flowers of the gorse have just come in and we're just surrounded in an ocean of yellow. I can hear it now already is chiffchaff, willow warbler, wren, song thrush, heard a yellowhammer, loads of birds I'd love to photograph. Okay, so for this, I brought out my trusty EM1 Mark II. This is a special camera for me. It's the first one that I got when I switched to Olympus OM System a good few years ago now, and I've had some amazing times with this camera and I've created some images that I'm really happy with. I also had a trip to Costa Rica last year, and when I had some issues with my OM1, this was then my trusty backup, and it has just never let me down. Love it. With the M1 Mark II, I'm going to try out the 75-300 4.8 to 6.7 Mark II. So equivalent focal length to full frame, this would be a 150 to 600. As you see here, it is tiny, fits in my hand, and weighs hardly anything. So this is going to be my go-to gear for this video. This is what I'm going to be trying to create some good images with, and I'm going to give some tips on how I'm going to do that with budget lens, because the lens is the main thing here. It is not so much the camera, it is more about the lens when it comes to creating good images. I think obviously a camera helps, you know, you can get the better cameras you get, the easier it can get to get images. Like the newest OM1 has got some incredible bird tracking features, it's got, you know, improved sensors and all that. It can take more ISO, yes, but usually I would say it is the lens it comes down to when you want to create some good images. So it is a 75-300 that really is gonna, you know, it's gonna be a bit of a challenge, and I'm looking forward to trying it out and seeing if we can create something really good with this. Ooh. Oh no, I got no card in this. No, I haven't used this camera for ages. That was a Dunnock that just landed over there. Also quite a nice looking bird, and especially in this yellow gorse. Rookie mistake. I need to just get my settings up here real quick. I haven't used this camera for so long. Luckily all the OM System cameras are very similar, so it doesn't take me long to get back into it. Love being in a place like this in springtime. The cuckoo's just arrived as well. I heard it for the first time yesterday, and I can hear a few of them around now in different directions. Their sound just travels so far. Now one of the things I do when I come to a place like this is I just try and kind of get settled in. I'm not trying to rush it. You know, I'm not running all over the place, moving slowly. If a bird lands on a branch close to me, I don't immediately bring my camera up like that, because they'll fly away in a second. I go slowly up, try to not make any rushed movements, and that way I might actually get some time with the bird when it lands close. Most of the time they're going to be landing further away, and I'll try and, you know, I'll try and make the best image I can, you know, small in frame, but I'm really hoping I'm going to get some closer to me as well. And for that, spending the time, staying in one place, moving slowly. One thing I really like to do, especially with an older camera, I do this all the time anyways, I photograph with really slow shutter speeds so I can keep my ISO low. Keep my ISO low is going to give me the best quality image. Right now, I'm keeping my ISO at 800. I know that I can push the ISO more on this camera, but I also know that 800 is going to give me a really good quality image, and I don't even need to use any kind of denoise software. And because this lens is a budget lens, it's got a higher f-stop, means I'll let less light into the lens, so I will have to shoot with slower shutter speed. That's an interesting one. I think that's a white throat. I really want to photograph the white throat. The background is right behind the bird. It just looks very messy. I need it to come up to the top of the gorse, and that way my background is far away and I can really make that bird stand out. I didn't have too much luck down there. I'm going to head a little bit further up. We're just getting the sun kind of clearing the horizon up here. So it's just a magical time to be out photographing. There we go. I've been watching this whitethroat now for quite a while, and I see that it comes back to this one little top of the gorse right over here. So I'm gonna stand here and wait till it comes back, does its singing on top of the gorse, and then get my image. Now, one of the biggest things I think that is the difference between what looks like a bit of an amateur image to what looks like a very nice image is isolation of the subject, and very often it's the background. Choosing a non-cluttered, far away background that you can blur out. And that's one of the reasons why I've come up here, because I'm at head height with most of the gorse, and the background behind is far away, so it's easy for me to blur it out, even with a lens like this, which I'm shooting an f-stop of f6.7. And that 6.7 means that the depth of field is slightly wider, so that means that nothing directly behind it is going to be very blurred out. So now my background is the hills and the trees that are further away, and it's easier to make a clean image and just really make that bird pop. Another thing that I like to do is blur out the foreground. And right now I'm using these gorse that are in between me and the bird, where I want the bird to land. And I'm kind of moving about slightly to get that nicely kind of blurred out effect in front of the bird, so that I don't even see the bottom of the gorse where the bird is sitting on. I have that nicely blurred out with other gorse, yellow gorse. So it's just this little ocean of blurred out gorse. Now when it comes to distance that you need for a background to be properly blurred out, there's a good tip that I heard years ago, that is, you want to be equal to or closer than half the distance of what the background is to the subject. So let's say I'm 4 meters away from this bird. Ideally, I want the background to be 8 meters away from the bird on the other side. Or I want to be even closer than that. Ideally, I want to be even closer than that. I think that rule was a bit more for lenses that had a shallower depth of field and a lower f-stop. So here, I prefer to be even closer than that. It's a nice little kind of guide to keep in the back of your mind, to always try and be half the distance to the bird as the background is to the bird. And when it comes to the foreground and the distances I play around with there, I don't want to be too close to the foreground when I'm trying to blur out, because then it's very easy to get this very blurred out effect, which actually just looks like the bird is blurred and out of focus. So I want to be able to stand back a little bit from the foreground, but not too far so that it becomes well defined. And for that, there is a guide again, which is something about using that foreground as about half the distance between you and the subject. But I think, again, for a lens like this, I would prefer to be a little bit closer to the foreground than that. But it's all about experimentation and seeing what looks nice. Something I'm always doing, I'm in continuous autofocus, and I keep focusing on the bird, I keep taking images. I'm not shy, I'm not the kind of person just to take one image, and especially not with older gear that, you know, autofocus might not be as good as what I'm used to. I will take a burst of images and make sure that some of them come out sharp. I like to hold my lens, even though it's a small one like this, I'll still like to hold the palm of my hand underneath the lens, really give it that support so that I'm really avoiding camera shake. And that way, the front of my fingers here, my index and my thumb are also on the manual focus ring, and I'm ready to just take advantage of that. So I always have manual focus available to me, and I use it with peaking so that I get this kind of a color come up that really tells me when I'm in focus, when something is sharp. So I often use that as well, just to make sure that I get the subject sharp. Now, if you're interested in how I use the OM system, my settings and everything for wildlife photography, I got a course called the OM System for Wildlife Photography. You can check it out in the link here or in the description below. And in case you're interested, have a look, see what it is, see if it's for you. I go through all the settings that I use on my OM System cameras. It works for all a range of the older OMD cameras and also the new OM1 camera. Just gonna walk around a little bit now. There's a tree creeper on this trunk of the tree here. And they tend to walk up the trunk, feed for invertebrates as they go. And then as they get quite high up or even to the end, they kind of just start over again at the bottom of the next tree. Well, hopefully, they don't always go to the bottom. Sometimes they just jump across, but ideally they go to the bottom. Then I get a chance to photograph it as a little bit lower, because I don't want to photograph it straight up. I'm back out in the forest today, and it's been Scotland. It was sunny and nice yesterday. I was sitting out in a t-shirt. Today it is cold. I'm wearing a hat and gloves. I got two red squirrels that's been running around the trees here. I'm hoping they're gonna come down and come close so I can get a photo. I'm out again with the EM1 Mark II and with the 75-300mm lens. Today is a particularly challenging day for this type of gear. Now the sun has only just come up and we've got dark clouds and I'm in a forest. So everything is against me on a day like this. But I'm going to give it a try anyways. But I'm starting out here with an ISO 1600 and I had to get my shutter speed down to 50th, maybe 60th of a second. Maybe even 40th of a second actually. And hopefully it'll get a little bit brighter as we move into the day. But that really limits me with what kind of images I can get. I'm really looking for portrait images when the animals are standing still for just a fraction of a second so I can get my image. And again, I'm taking a burst of images. I keep focusing and I might even try some manual focus just to be sure I get it. Just run around the side. Two squirrels running about chasing each other. What a little shit. A couple of tips on getting a sharper image when you're using a budget lens like this can be to change your f-stop to about f8, f9, which is very often the sharpest f-stop on a lens. Another tip is to zoom back a little bit. I remember in Malaysia I was photographing long-tailed macaques, and I remember shooting with the Canon system at the time, and I had a Tamron 150-600 lens, so about equivalent kind of focal length to this. And I was getting, you know, decent images in that, but one day I remember having this troop of macaques come close to me, and I was looking at the photos that I got after that session, and it was an incredible session with just this juvenile being kind of preened by two adults, and I took so many images. And I remember looking at them afterwards, and I was so surprised at how sharp they were. They were so much sharper than all the other images I got them. And I looked at my focal length, and that's when it kind of clicked that I was actually at around 400mm, which would be about 200mm on this lens. And what I read up afterwards, this was quite the beginning of my kind of wildlife photography journey, was that lenses can be a lot sharper, less of a focal length. So if you zoom back a little bit, so if you manage to get closer to your subject, you can zoom back a little bit and maybe even get sharper images. I have a whole playlist of videos on how to get close to your subject for wildlife photography, so go check them out.